what's really being advocated here is an embrace of a peaceful mind. And mine wants to pick out that thing and that thing and that thing and say, this shouldn't be, this shouldn't be, this shouldn't be.
That is what I'm talking. It's like I can tolerate my humanity, being with this people and being in the world and seeing awful behavior. I'm just like I can tolerate my humanity.
Right. So it seems to me that you're talking about what I often call compassion for the human condition.
Yeah.
Hello and welcome to Herein Lies the Peace of God in the Awakening Together Sanctuary. The Awakening Together Sanctuary is an assembly of equals joined in common purpose, awakening to one true self. Then in an appearance of many faiths, many cultures, and many symbols, we seek to discern one truth and to rest in its embrace. The host of Herein Lies the Peace of God is Reverend Jacquelyn and Eckert, the President and Minister of Awakening Together. Our co-host is your favorite anarchist preacher, Reverend Glen Ganaway, integral scholar. A Course in Miracles says this about discerning one truth. Nothing real can be threatened. Nothing unreal exists. Herein lies the peace of God.
Sing glory, glory, hallelujah. How wonderful thy holy name. Now I can see with God's own vision, and I see peace instead of pain. Yes, I see peace instead of pain. I can see peace instead of pain.
Hey, everybody. Welcome to Herein Lies the Peace of God. Our opening music was that of the lovely Reverend Yolanda Mates. Thank you. I love that music. Kind of a bluegrass theme there, isn't it? Like it's just like being back home. So what we do in this program is Reverend Glen Ganaway and I, we've been looking at A Course in Miracles. Gosh, I can't even remember where we've been. I can tell you where we are now. We are now on the manual for teachers. What did we do first, Glenn? I forgot.
The characteristics.
But didn't we do something before we did the manual?
Yes, of course we did.
What was it? See, it made a lasting impression on me.
Oh my Lord, this is right.
Clarification of terms.
Yeah, the clarification of terms. Yeah. Clarification of terms. I'm like,
somebody's paying attention. And actually, I think that's it's funny, but I think it's really helpful to describe really what we do here, because we're not. It's not about teaching A Course in Miracles. I don't think that's true for me or for Glenn, either one. It's really about at getting at the truth that's in this particular manuscript.
Mm-hmm.
So that's what we've been doing each week. We are currently, like I say, we are in the manual for teachers, and we are looking at we aren't. We are looking at what are the characteristics of God's teachers, and we have so far done the introductory section to that. We've done trust, honesty, and I think that's it, right? Does that sound right? Okay,
yeah.
Good. And Glenn normally starts by asking, Glenn starts, but we're going to put him in the background a little bit today. So, and spotlight Jacquelyn. No, I'm just teasing. This is a joint endeavor. And so that's why I'm talking. And what I want to do now is ask, hey, Lynn, I want to ask Glenn about his week and whether this material informed his week. So, Glenn?
Spoke to me last week was this idea about being honest, about, the honesty was the big thing that she says at the end of this thing, and that's really been Billy, one have been the most helpful things for me to get a hold of my own authenticity, getting hold of my own sense of a feeling tone of my own presence. That honesty principle was really good, and I enjoyed the last discussion about that. It's interesting when she moves through these things. How have I personalized? How can I look at these ideas and say these are my characteristics? How am I characteristically embodying, or not embodying these kind of like these big ideas? And because they look like big ideas to me, because I'm a big idea. I'm not small and little and helpless and confused. I am all these things. When she says these are the characteristics of, it's like kind of put a little bit of a rod in my back. It's kind of like, oh, stand up and rep what you believe. Stand a little taller, be more, I don't know, upright. I come from a military background, so it's like stand up, shoulders back, present, So when she's talking about these things, I'm kind of in now this. We talked about the characteristics of God. Thank you, Shauna, for that. But we talked about the characteristics of God, and we're talking about the qualities. And she starts out with like the 6 phases of trust, and she doesn't let up on this theme. By the way, she brings up the first one every single time. So it's working directly with these ideas every day, studying them. Part of my 3 classes a week, and it's just like normalizing, sort of, for me, a new normalizing, being, representing those characteristics, trying to physically understand what that feeling tone of these characteristics are. What is it? What does my body look like in full tolerance? What does my body look like in joy? How do I convey? Because we're human beings. I'm, giving clues to everybody what I believe in the world, but by my body language and my, I'm telling everybody how to treat me all the time, right?
Yeah.
It's good, because that's who. It's just the thinking of the feeling tone of being Glen and trying to be joy, a Glen and joy, Glen and tolerance, Glen, a trusting Glen, that's been kind of a new thing, the feeling tone of it, the
Very nice.
3-dimensional aspect of it.
Very nice. Yeah.
What about you? Have you have a joyful or tolerant or a gentle experience?
Well, I hope. I have. I got to tell you, I'm doing weekend retreats this month for 3 weekends in a row, and so everything's just kind of a blur.
I get that way.
It's really good. I got to tell you that as I looked at this again today, and as you were just speaking, I really feel to speak about, we've talked every time we've been in the same room together. You and I have talked about how we come from different places, and yet we seem to meet at the same place. We seem to end up at the same place. But I am struck again by these terms, that these characteristics of God's teachers. That Helen/Jesus have shared with us. And I am struck that they have names that we think we know what they mean. You can look up trust in the dictionary, you can look up honesty in the dictionary, you can look up tolerance. They are not going to say what we're learning here. No. They just don't. They don't. So I think when we talk about, what does trusting Glen look like, or trusting Jacquelyn look like, we really have to go back to, and I'm sure that you are as you contemplate this, but we really have to go back to their unique usage here in the course. I mean, and I'm looking at this on my screen where I reviewed it before. And for example, I'm looking under honesty in it, and I've got bolded and underlined her line that says the term actually means consistency. Yeah. And, you know, I mean, if we were just approaching this, walking in off the street and talking about this, we might go honesty. Oh, because that person wasn't entirely honest, I'm not going to listen to anything, you know, nothing they have to say has any value. I'm going to shun them. I mean, I don't know how one might react coming from a different position, but the point is, this is not, you know, this is not a separation of the wheat from the chaff. This doesn't tell you who's going to hell and who's going to heaven, right? That's not what this is about.
No.
So just looking at the essence of the way these terms are defined here, just doing that is very informative. And just for me, I mean, just sitting in my living room, you know, looking at the book and seeing what she or he, whether you talk about Helen or Jesus, what they mean when they are sharing these as characteristics of God. Because again, I mean, who's going to say honesty means consistency? What?
Yeah, it kind of takes the morality right out of it. We really do want these things to be moral ways in which we can sharpen these attributes to use against each other. You're not joyous, you're not tolerant, you're not gentle, you're not trustworthy, you're not honest, and I'm sharpening up my fingers and I can tell who's honest and who's not. You know, that's how these terms are used most of the time in what I look at and what I read online. I read a lot of politics. So that's how these words are used, not in the sense of way to embody something. It's a way to dismember somebody.
Isn't that interesting? Yeah, which is what, of course, you know, those are the two thought systems, right? Ego dismembers, inner wisdom gets that, you know, or Holy Spirit gets that it's all one in it, you know, and no man can put us under, or however that goes, right?
I don't know. There's a sunder in there somewhere.
What God has joined, no man can put us under. But I mean, but it's absolutely true. Those are the two thought systems. So I think so it's just really, it's always fascinated me how the terms in the course, whatever the terms are, forgiveness, the one that comes to mind right now, or love, or any of that is different than it's used in our present day nomenclature.
That's her modus operandi, though. That theme, there isn't practically a word in the Course of Miracles in any kind of, you know, theoretical or theory or presenting way of understanding an idea or a principle that she doesn't flip on its head. You know, she turns almost all of the concepts, which is one of the reasons why I love Course of Miracles, because I believe that it is I call it the manual for liberation. You know, what I call the Course of Miracles. It is the manual for liberation. Liberation from what? Unknowingly choosing your own suffering.
Yes.
You know, liberating yourself from ignorantly choosing suffering again and again and again and again. When, you know, so it's like learning the concept that the biggest one she does, and we're going to continue to flip these on its head, is the idea of forgiveness. And now all of these characteristics of God is all about forgiveness, but it's sort of in the background. You know, honesty and everything is, it's in forgiveness. The definition Course of Miracles gives of forgiveness really radically changed my life, because it was forgiving them for what they didn't do. You know, and that radically changed, that put me on the other side of the mountain. You know, it's like, oh, I am approaching this thing completely upside down and asswards. You know. Well,
isn't that funny? Because that's what we learn here as we read A Course in Miracles. Somewhere it says it. You probably know where. That the ego gets everything 180 degrees backwards. Everything. So when we say that Helen and Jesus are flipping these things 180 degrees, they're just turning them right side up.
Right side up. Right. right?
Yeah.
It's like finally seeing the map with the Mercator map and the Johnstonian map. Have you seen the maps of the U.S. of the world? They flip
No.
they flip it all upside down, where America's at the
Yeah.
bottom and Africa's like at the top, and Asia's over here. It's the most accurate map we know how to represent, but we don't teach that one because it doesn't put Western mind with the Western viewpoint at the top and have most
Right?
land on the thing.
Great analogy.
That's not even the truth. The land, it's like it's like this
Close
is the
enough.
lie. We created it to perpetuate this lie.
I think that's something.
I know.
Yeah, it's exactly. Yeah, it's a great analogy.
Thank you.
So where are we? What do you want to do now?
Pizza. This woman talks about this woman. I just read this post about comparing it
45
to
minutes
so
you have pizza.
I have deep dish pepperoni pizza and anchovy on my brain right now. So my brain said immediately, the ego answers first and answers loudest. You said, "What do you want to do?" And my ego said, "Pizza."
Pizza.
Definitely pizza. So
We're beginning here with tolerance. Is that?
yes, we are. Yes, we are. So
I mean, the section called tolerance.
yes, the section called tolerance. So just to give a little bit of orientation, we are through the first concept, which is trust, right? And there are 6 stages to trust, and that it ends with achievement. So but it's this. The whole thing is developed on. The whole thing is on trust. And then she says the first characteristic after that is honesty, that is built on this idea of trust. And then she moves on to tolerance. So tolerance is in the top 3 characteristics of God. How often do you use the word tolerance? We'll teach later, but it's like tolerance. Number 3? Okay.
I got a short story about tolerance before we go into it.
Sure.
That seems relevant. Let's hope it is. Actually, I remember at one point being around some in-laws who were espousing about whatever, right? And I told one of them that I tolerate everything but intolerance.
Yeah.
Right? Ha ha ha! Wasn't that clever? But you know what?
It's true.
That was incorrect as well. is the decision that I have now come to is, it's tolerance in the face of anything.
Yeah.
Even tolerance in the face of intolerance.
Yep.
Yeah. So, okay. Story's over.
No, you can actually look up the paradox of intolerance. There's a whole philosophy on that.
Oh.
The paradox of intolerance.
Of course there is.
It's absolutely delicious. So
okay, I will.
It doesn't conflict with anything you just said. So
okay, now I'll definitely look it up then.
The paradox of tolerance. Okay, and she says this about tolerance. She says, God's teachers do not judge. To judge is to be dishonest. For to judge is to assume a position that you do not have. Judgment without self-deception is impossible. Judgment implies that you have been deceived in your brothers. How then could you not have been deceived in yourself? Judgment implies a lack of trust, and trust remains the bedrock of the teacher of God's whole thought system. Let this be lost, and all his learning goes. Without judgment are all things equally acceptable, for who could judge otherwise? Without judgment are all men brothers, for who is there who stands apart? Judgment destroys honesty and shatters trust. No teacher of God can judge and hope to learn.
All right. Well, I'll start this out with a slash and burn because I would get rid of the word tolerance altogether.
Okay, strike number 3 is off.
I'm just going to rename it. I'm going to rename it.
Okay.
I'm going to rename it to non-judgment.
Okay.
Tolerance, you were just talking about forgiveness. And and forgiveness is for in the formulation that you gave, is forgiving your brother for what he didn't do.
Right.
Tolerance suggests, it's the same kind of backwards, okay, I can tolerate this. It's like,
Oh yeah.
it's irritating, but that's okay. I'll overlook it. Or, it's ignorant, but that's okay. I'll overlook it. So it's that same kind of idea, but non-judgment feels more like, okay, I'm coming in here with a clean slate and haven't made any judgments, and I'm not going to make any judgments. There's nothing to judge. Everything's wonderful. So it just comes in the door just a whole lot cleaner, it seems to me, than tolerance. Yeah, and the underlying truth here is that, and you've heard me say it before, there's only one thing going on here. There's only one thing going on here. So, is this finger going to judge this finger? I mean, there's only one hand, right? It just doesn't make sense. So when it says, judgment without self-deception is impossible, well, absolutely. I mean, in order to judge, I have to believe that there's a me and a you, right? There's at least two things going on here in order to believe judgment, right? And so the moment, so its very foundation is the belief in separation.
Yep.
So the moment you go down that road, you have missed the boat. Yeah. So let's see. Judgment, she says, judgment implies a lack of trust, and trust remains the bedrock of the teacher of God's whole thought system. And again, we looked at this before. So trust in what?
Oh yeah.
Trust that all is well all the time. Not trust that I'll get the new job or the red car or the hot boyfriend. No. Trust that everything that shows up is perfect the way it shows up, because there's no way on God's green earth that I could suffer from lack, loss, limitation. That's totally impossible. So the very idea of trust is the belief in oneness. And it's I was gonna say it's nemesis. I'm not sure that's correct, but its exact opposite then would be judgment, right? There you got your two thought systems again: separation, oneness. So let's see. Yeah. She says, without judgment are all things equally acceptable, for who could judge otherwise? The next sentence she says kind of explains what I was just saying, but this, all things are equally acceptable. I just want to point out that we spend a lot of time in Awakening Together talking about the loving all method. And this is the reason. All things are equally acceptable, as we just found out when we talked about trust, right? All things are perfect. They don't need to be different. Needing things to be different is actually the belief in separation, is the belief in two-ness. And so this goes right to the heart of loving all, and why we practice it, because our 180 degree, messed up mind, ego, the thinking mind, thinks that, no, if things were a little bit better, I'd be a little bit safer. I'd be a little bit more loved, none of which is true. So again, the moment you buy into the belief that all things aren't equally acceptable, and I mean all things, and this is really hard because we talk about child abuse, we talk about animal abuse, we talk about racism, we talk about homophobia. I mean, whatever these things we're talking about, what do you mean that's equally acceptable? All things are equally acceptable. And it's really difficult to practice that.
Yeah.
Because I know what's right, and that's not right. You should treat all people the same. And the highest ego mind can get is that belief that I just said.
Yeah.
You treat all people the same. But it's not that we're the same, it's that we're one.
Yeah. So
if I look out there and say there's something wrong going on here, then I have bought that the illusion of separate people doing bad things to separate people is the truth. And I've really given up the real truth, which is that there's only one thing going on here. There's only one of us, and there are no mistakes anywhere. Okay, I think I'm done.
Can you tolerate? Yeah, and you can tolerate that. You know, I I like the idea of tolerance because it really so I'm not going to scrap it. So
Okay.
I'm going to leave it. I'm going to leave it on my wood pile. You can, or you can put it on your wood pile. But this, because it causes me to examine what I think tolerance is.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, I'm going to say tolerance is, you're saying be tolerant and tolerant to anything. So of course my little, my understanding is like, oh, so you're gonna tolerate tolerate child abuse without saying anything. Your niece comes to you every weekend with a black eye, and you're just like, oh well, gonna go and get ice cream,
I don't really think that's the point I was making. You go right ahead.
I know, but it's like, so what do I hear when I hear tolerance? I hear letting what my own conditioning. I'm talking about conditioning. When I hear tolerance, and I think this is what she's addressing, you're conditioned to. That's why she talks about judgment. She's talking directly to your presupposed conditions to tolerance. We consider tolerance means something doesn't matter, or proof that I don't have the power to do anything about it. And that's not how she wants us to think about tolerance at all. She doesn't want to say, I'm not asking you to be ineffectual or mamby-pamby or or wishy-washy or lukewarm or any of the words that we know. Tolerant in the way we understand it in the community. I'm a gay trans rights person. I've marched in parades and got in all kinds of trouble for that. I'm not really interested in your tolerance. You can take your tolerance and whatever. I really don't care about your tolerance. Because I want to move from that concept that you were talking about, Jacquelyn, from the ego to the spiritual. It's not, I don't want to be treated the same. Anybody who's disabled in a wheelchair is saying, you can't treat me the same. I can't get in the building. I don't get in the building the same way you get in the building. You can't treat me the same way. Developmentally disabled, women have different biological functions, So we hear tolerance and we have to pull it out really, and she's really asking us to do this. So when I hear tolerance, I say, do I think I have the knowledge in order to understand all the nuances that are going into this situation, and I believe that I know how this thing should be resolved. That's an incredible level of arrogance and ignorance,
Yes.
And it's dangerous. How many times has maybe you got a new supervisor at work, and she comes in and all gung ho, and she changes everything because she doesn't know how anything works, right? So you're just like, it comes from this, like, it's beyond my pay grade. It is just beyond this judgment, like not to live in this sense of like all things are possible. Do you know why all things are possible? Because God has no conditions on reality other than it obeys her laws. We can have whatever experience that we want. The tolerance of somebody else's journey is really kind of huge. It's like, I want you to have your thing with God. I don't want to step in and go, this is how I need you to perform your spirituality so I understand it, and that you're a good, and I understand and you're performing good people for me, so I can tolerate you. right? Mostly what we do in this society is teach the performance of tolerance, not necessarily the actual experience of tolerance. So she says, God's teachers do not judge, period. You know, so because we don't have the information, we just don't have the information. So tolerance has got to be the thing. It is, I don't know how any of this is supposed to go. I don't know how this is. I don't know what it means or anything like that. So I'm going to rely on my teacher. I'm going to trust that God has this thing in hand, and she doesn't need me to swoop in, you know, like a hero and a rescuer and make sure everything is okay. To judge is to be dishonest. And the first thing you have to do in order to judge somebody else is deceive yourself. You have to not like, it's got to be projection, because you can't see, you can't make the judgment or anything like that, anything that you don't know, or you haven't cut off from yourself. So it's like what you're seeing in other people is like the tolerance of somebody, the tolerance of what is going on in the world is the very tolerance of the uncomfortability of becoming human. You know? And I like that. So without judgment, all things are equally acceptable.
Hey, can you back up?
Sure.
Because I missed that sentence about being human. Repeat that for me.
This idea of tolerance and being not like means that when I walk to work 20 blocks, I walk 20 blocks a day. So I'm on the sidewalk in New York City a lot. And I'm also a driver. I also have a driver's license. I also know how to drive, and I know what the laws are in this town. But it's true in my neighborhood that if you the nicer car you have, the less laws you have to obey. I don't know if that's the law where you are, but the nicer the car you have, the less rules of the road you have to obey. Obey.
Yeah.
You can pull into sidewalks, parking, crosswalks, all kinds of stuff. You can whip around stuff, all of this. It's been difficult for me to be in a place where I can tolerate that. But what I'm tolerating is my seeing before me my own inhumanity to other people. What I'm seeing is my own ignorance of that I'm in the world of oneness, not in the world by myself, and I'm competing with other people. What I'm seeing before me is people behaving badly. And if I can look at that and I can see it for what it is, my own reflection of my own desire to be, privileged or get more or have more or not worry about anybody else, or impose my will for being look at my car, that gets me into a feeling and a feeling tone and a direct experience with my own humanity. And that is what I'm it's like I can tolerate my humanity, being with these people and being in the world and seeing awful behavior. I'm just like, I can tolerate my humanity. So that tolerance is about getting into. For me, it seems it's a little door into my humanity. Because without it, I have to deceive myself.
Right. So it seems to me that you're talking about what I often call compassion for the human condition. Yeah. It's
not easy being a human being. It's not easy. It never has, and it never has been. But it's not easy being. It's not easy having a brilliant short life of a hummingbird either. I
have to assume that's true.
So but is any of them not worth doing? I'm not in a place to make that kind of judgment. That's like really outside of my pay, about my pay grade, as they say. So judgment destroys honesty and shatters trust. Trust, we know, is the foundation of the teachers of God. It's like this inner wisdom. Do you have a line on your own inner wisdom? And do you even like trust that line on your inner wisdom? However you manage to find it or pull it or work with it, live with it. It becomes a lifestyle or a way of walking in the world in which tolerance takes on another meaning for me, rather than the one that the paradox of tolerance, the paradox of tolerance is that what you said, you tolerate everything but the active shutting down of tolerance. So that's the paradox of tolerance. Everything is tolerable except the violent overthrow or control of expression, I guess you would say.
Right.
But the last thing I wanted to bring out is that what I really loved I come from my dad's an engineer. My dad wanted me to go to engineering school. I have kind of like a mechanical mind. Tolerance is an engineering term.
It is.
And to think about like the tolerance of something. You're
talking about how there's that much room for error, right? It's got a tolerance.
Tolerance is variation from a standard.
Yes. Yeah.
So the judgment comes in. It's like, whose standard?
That's true.
That gets it right, because the variation of the standard. It's like, oh, I'm having a lot of trouble with the variation of the standard today. Cis white. The variation of the standard of cis white guy is something that I have trouble with on a regular basis. You may as well. So, so I can do. I'm interested in that. It's like, oh, it's all me. It helps me get to the place of it's all me. And I'm judging how this is all the karma somebody needs to do, the journey they need to have, the thing they need to experiment with, the thing they have to go get so they can lose it and find God. How am I ever going to step into somebody's life on an instant based on one awful, truly awful, incredibly self-centered daily occurrence that this person makes? To say that, I'm going to write them, everybody else is God except you, because you're terrible. You're bad. You do this human thing so awful. The variation of the standard that you occupy should be culled, and so that's dangerous. That's just patently dangerous. So I like the engineering term. It helps me get around the variation against a standard. It's like I can tolerate a lot of variation. I think tolerating variation of a standard is probably a very, very good idea.
I really appreciate a lot of the points. Well, all of the points that you made. I wanted to talk about a couple of them. That whole thing where we're talking about, child abuse or whatever, intolerance that we find in the world. You said, I'm not asking you to be mamby-pamby. And what's really being advocated here is an embrace of a peaceful mind. And, mine wants to pick out that thing and that thing and that thing and say, this shouldn't be, this shouldn't be, this shouldn't be. Yeah.
And I'm off.
And that is not peace. And so, we may be asked to stand between the abused woman and the man that's abusing her.
Sure.
We may be asked to.
Oh yeah.
To go on a national scale and make a different, make laws about that. We may be asked to do that.
Yeah.
But that's being moved. What we might say is that's being moved by the Tao. That's being moved by the one will as opposed to being moved by your own self-will. I also appreciated that, and which was pretty much your entire point, which was, this belief that I know, that I'm the one that knows how everything should be,
Mhm.
you know? And anytime we go into the, I know mind, we've headed down the wrong path.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it really is that openness to be shown, which you really pointed out well. So thank you for doing that.
I probably have trusted my thinking. I've I've been told I'm smart my whole life, so I've been told that that's an asset that I can rely on. And again, it's really not. There's
It's
no.
not. I'm glad you know that, because I didn't want to have to tell you.
No, there's no advantage. There's as lovely as it is, there's no advantage to that at all. And I don't even and this idea of tolerance is like, I don't even know what's good for me.
Yeah.
I don't even know what I can tolerate, because I have been through things that that I didn't think I was going to be able to tolerate. we won't go into details, but it's like I have never reached the limits of my what I can tolerate, but maybe I've come close, maybe I haven't, but I've never reached the limits. There's always been more room in God. There's always more room for grace. It's never without nothing to do, never being alone. It's just, but that it comes from desiring to be here, to tolerate this existence. It comes from, existentialism. The whole philosophy is existentialism comes from this. Is, can you possibly bear to be a human being and not know where you come from and where you go? You can't really. The existentialism. The thing is, it's like you can't prove God. You can't not prove God. You can't prove any of this. That's the existentialist idea. So it's like their whole philosophies have come out of this thing. How do we know what to do? How do we know how to create a society? How do we create a culture? What is tolerated is often what we call culture, So it's I think it's number 3 because it's a real subtle way in which we use it to undermine a lot of other stuff in the world. It's like this spice that's in everything that we can't taste anymore.
Well, yeah, I think you're absolutely right, because this is the whole of it. You're either in what she calls tolerance here, or you're in judgment.
Yeah. You flip right over, and we don't sometimes know when that, when that conversion happens. Tolerant, and then now I'm all the way.
Well, that's easily judgeable. Tolerant.
Yeah. He goes, oh yeah, everybody knows that. Tolerance. We laugh because we've seen it. We've seen it in our own lives. We've seen it in people that we respect and love. So
well, and I got to tell you that I was just thinking that they say hindsight's 20/20. I'm just amazed when I look back at 2020 Jacquelyn, or 2019 Jacquelyn. It's like, oh my God.
Uh-huh.
It's a wonder somebody didn't kill me before now. It's just amazing. It's just amazing because we've talked enough that we may not get to the next topic tonight, but just this whole idea of gentleness, right? It's like you can see how it arises out of wisdom, out of knowledge, as opposed to ignorance.
Yeah, or out of being weak. All that, like, you have to be tolerant because you're weak. But in engineering, the greater tolerance you have something is the less likely something's going to break down.
That's true. Isn't that interesting? That's an excellent point.
So it's like we think creating this really brittle personality, this brittle society, which very clearly black and white, and everybody knows what to do. Those are robots. Those aren't actually people in that vision. There isn't anything human or lovely or anything that's remotely possible, new or interesting that can come about. It's already locked down, programmed, and set in stone. It's literally a script in which somebody draws every single thing and puts it all together, and it looks like it's moving, and it looks like it just happens. It's not. It's planned out, and it's dead. It's dead. And it becomes once I was able to see, like, oh, yeah, dead things are not frightening. It's like, oh, I'm scared of being alive. I'm scared of the unpredictableness of being alive, instead of being excited and knowing that there's more good coming to me. There's more beauty to experience. There's more love to experience. There's no, I'd given up on love. I'd gotten my heart broken. I mean, running through I've told this story a million times, but it's like running through the rain, sobbing, that whole like B movie, Sandra Bullock, running through the rain and the hair, and just got that kind of breaking your heart, kind of like just ripped to shreds. Oh, I really did that. Not with Sandra Bullock, but at that moment. It's just like, you're just like, I gave up. I literally gave up. And it's like, okay, if I have to be fake in a relationship, if I have to be not being myself, if I have to try, if I have to perform, if I have to say words, I have to do anything, I'm done. I'm never having another relationship that isn't anything other than me full on. I'm not going to try to figure out. I am done. I'm not going to be a good person or a bad person. They're just going to get me. I'm done. I was so heartbroken. Through tears and a lot of snot. That allowed me that tolerance of being human. It's like, okay, tolerance, like, this is the future. If this is what it is, I'm gonna have to be okay with it. Never to be with anybody again, to be alone and be single and not ever do it again. That's fine. It has to be okay. That I have to be able to tolerate that condition if I never fall in love again or anything like that. And that letting go, that willingness to look where I had never looked before, because I only dated executives with lots and lots and lots of nice cars. I was able to see the love that was right in front of me with Yolanda. If I had not gotten my heart broken, if I have not been able to say I'm willing to what was the definition? Like, if I needed to allow more variation to the standard, and I became healthier. I was able to see the love and see more that was there. And there's just, I don't know a way out of that. Tolerance is something that's it's an inner thing that you see in the world, just like everything else. But I never, I've had a lot of conversations about tolerance because of this paradox of tolerance in my activism. So I'm a little deep into this idea in my activist work.
Well, again, I think I prefer other words, but I get hung up on the words sometimes. I would, just saying compassion, could be better, more descriptive.
Yeah, that's why I have to go to like other disciplines, because sometimes other disciplines have a way more like perspective on it. Like I looked that up. Leeway in the variation of a standard for tolerance. I looked that up, and that hit me like a brick. And it was like, I can do that. I can not hate you. I can not like think you're a bad person. I can do this. Oh, this is way outside of the standard, and I can let this person, go.
I think at some point you really do begin to see the two columns. You begin to see peace of mind and people who are suffering, and they're and because they're listening to this, right, to ego or the thinking mind or the confused mind or the insanity, whatever you want to call it, that's what's causing their own suffering.
Yeah.
And as you said, everything that every thought we have, every action that we take sends a prayer out that's answered by the world, answered by those around us.
Yeah.
We spend so much time talking about, or as a society, don't blame the victim. Well, gotta say that what you said about you're sending out these prayers and you don't even realize that you're sending out these prayers. So you're seeing people living in their own suffering.
Mm-hmm.
And that's where the compassion comes in.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, compassion for, it's like, oh, I've got it wrong. I haven't, I remember 2000 me, sort of, and I don't know who that got, I can look back
God, he's gone.
I'm looking back on decisions I've made, and it's like, I don't even know how I don't even know how I could like walk upright and ask people like, to trust me or anything, it's just absolutely, so the world is here showing me what I need to learn.
Yes.
And the beauty of you're trying to develop that. See, this is the wonderful thing. She says, these are the characteristics of the teachers of God. And the wink is, don't you want to develop these characteristics? Don't you? Doesn't this look appealing? Because she's talking directly. Because you've mentioned this before. She really does. She really is talking to a person or a mindset that doesn't know or is not sure or doesn't know what I call it their humanity. It's like that doesn't really understand the depth, meaning, and power and strength of their own humanity. Yeah. So she's talking directly to this person who is kind of scared, thinks they're little, fixable but currently broken. That's who she's like talking to. Somebody who really tries hard but gets it wrong mostly, then they get it right. Thinks they're alone, has to do it all basically does it all themselves, but thinks that's virtuous, right? I did it all myself. It's my program and my spiritual thing, and I go to retreat, and I go to, Adyashanti recently did this whole hour and a half on, if this isn't a lifestyle, I really don't need you to tune in. If we aren't having a lifestyle, if I'm not a part, if your desire to be in the real world and all this, if you aren't living this and doing and waking and breathing and walking around in this, and I'm part of it, and other people are part of this, then I don't need you to come and do this with me. I don't need your consumption of my teaching.
Interesting.
It's like,
did he say that out loud?
No, he implied it. He's, because he goes, this is a practice. My new emphasis is now going to be on developing a lifestyle, developing your actual walking around presence as what we would call as a child of God. What he calls is like the awakened being that the world is calling for right now. Be it, do it, get on the thing, make it a lifestyle. This isn't a Sunday thing. This isn't a Monday thing. This isn't a, you know what to do. Trust the voice that likes you. We're all in this together. We're all here to help you. But if you have to do this alone and you're going to do all this and you just need to look good, you need to look good in Lululemons, then what are you doing? Then what are we even doing here? Because so many places. And this isn't just about spirituality. It's the gym, it's the church, it's work. Is the performance of virtue, and the performance.
I'm sorry, say that again. I missed it.
The performance of virtue. A lot of what we classify as characters of a human being we understand as the performance of virtues. We perform them, So we hold the door open because we don't want to be seen as somebody who doesn't hold the door. We don't say, oh, child of God, I'm going to hold the door for you. We're all one and moving for the thing. Of course not, we're doing that. But, to only do it when we're being watched, to only do it to be seen, only do it when there's compensation, or only doing it when, I write 3 Medium blog posts a week on meditation, but, I can't sit still for, an hour.
No, I understand. I do.
That the performance of it. I get caught
Yeah,
up
I mean,
on
it's like Red says in Shawshank Redemption, right?
Oh,
Get busy living or get busy
busy
dying.
dying. And that's an attitude, isn't it? That's a lifestyle.
That's it. That's it. I mean, you can do this as a hobby, but why? Surely there are better hobbies. And if it's going to be more than a hobby, then that means doing it everywhere, in the bathroom, at work, in the garage, wherever.
Yeah,
you're doing it.
Walking to work every day, looking at traffic, like walking on the sidewalk, having to be on the sidewalk, having to watch for cars going to work that are trying to get on the Verrazano Bridge. It's a busy part of the street. Almost kill people every day.
What a good practice for you.
It's like, oh my God, my mind. Oh my God, my mind is like my mind has like bought baseball bats to kick. It's like like those samurai warriors with the two swords in the back of the thing. I want baseball bats. But that's where my mind goes. That's not tolerance, and I know that's not tolerance. But I can see my own desire, the motive, this feeling tone that comes to me. Goes, I know you're better than this, because I know I'm human and I know you're human. I know you're not this selfish, because you're a mother or a son. You value your job. You value you're honest. You don't steal. I know you're a good person.
That's got to get back to this whole, again, in that train of thought, this belief in loss.
Yeah.
This belief that, yes, that I got to get mine before you get yours,
Yeah.
or else I'll suffer. Yeah. Yeah. And so it's a whole, I mean, and certainly from that perspective, it's like Jesus said, forgive them, Father, they know not what they do. I mean, they don't understand that this is the world that's being created by these types of thoughts. It's the world, look out the window, it's the world we live in, right? And if people had a true understanding of, like you said, the power that we have to create, then and understood how creation works, and then those would not be the choices they're making. It's and right, and therein lies your compassion, right? Your tolerance or your compassion. I mean, was there a time when I believed that, buddy, I'm going to push you out of the way so I can get yeah, there was. I could cite specific instances.
I've been in an airport.
Yeah. So, I mean, so what is there to forgive? What is there to tolerate? It's like, yeah, that's the human condition. That's the fundamental belief system that the human operates in. Get out of the way, buddy.
Competition. That's the fourth law of chaos. Competition is real. It's, the first phase of awakening, being is having. Can I tolerate how someone else finds God? Can I watch somebody else find God not the way I found my way?
That's a good question.
Can I watch that happen? That's what God does. I mean, Jesus felt like that God turned away from him on the cross, right? He goes, hey, what? I'm out here doing the thing you told me, and you I can't feel you anymore. I know. Look at this. I can't. So there we are. It's like I don't have the ability to put it all together.
You better play our outro, or we won't get to play it.
All righty.
We love y'all. Thank you.
You've been listening to Herein Lies the Peace of God with Reverend Jacquelyn Eckert and Reverend Glen Ganaway. To find out more about Jacquelyn and to donate to Awakening Together Sanctuary, go to www.awakening-together.org. To find out more about Glen and to donate to the Mighty Companions Ministries, go to www.glenganaway.com. That's GLENGANAWAY.com.